So one of the things we'll also be using is trigonometric functions. So on your calculator, I mentioned already in lectures, that's the sine, cosine, and tan functions. Especially we will be using in our workings the sine button. So the sine function is a function. So in a way, what you're doing is you're looking at a function with respect to x, and you're looking at the values from sine of x. So you're sticking in these values into the function, and it will tell you a new value. So in this case, if you're sticking in values for x into sine x between 0 and 360, because in this case we're treating x as degrees, you'll get for the sine function and 0, you'll get 0. At 180, you'll get 0, and at 360, you'll get 0. You also then get values between 1 and -1. So you'll get values at 90 degrees of 1, at 270 degrees at -1, and so on. If you plot that all nicely, you'll get a function that is called a sine function. So now if you're putting in a value in the calculator of, for example, let's say 200 degrees, your calculator will look up the function and will give you a value of, and let's type that in. So if you type in 200 sine, what your calculator should spit out is a value of roughly -0.34. So -0.34 with 2020 more digits after that. That's the function of the sine value. So therefore you can see, independently, if I put in different degree values, I'll get values between 1 and -1. Next bit is if I now, instead of inserting an x value into sine, but I have a value of, say, 0.3 for sine of x, and therefore I'm looking for this x value, but we said I have to do the inverse. I have to say x is going to be equal sine the inverse function of it of 0.3. That means in my pocket calculator, I now have to use the shift function. You can check if that's shift or second on yours. Essentially, the button that activates that top bit which says sine invert. It's not 1 over sine, it means sine invert function. So if it does that, then in this case, what you'll do, 0.3 and the inverse of the sine should give you, for your calculator, something that is 0.3 shift sine for mine, and it will give you a value here in my case of 17, and I'm 4, 5, and so on. I'll round up 5, and that's in degrees. But the important thing is the value is not, for x is not 0.3. The sine function for x is 0.3, but not the value. Also, understanding how the sine function works, if you have in the equation 1.8 is going to be sine of a new x, you can see already, well, the sine function looks like that, and I'm looking for a value that I can choose along here that will give me 1.8. That's impossible, because the sine function never goes higher than 1 or lower than -1. So you know already there's something going wrong here. That's definitely not equal. My best tip is, in the situation of the refraction equations and Snell's law and similar things, is the 1.8 might be a sign that your value here is incorrect. So in a case where, for example, you think the 1.8 comes from a refractive index from air to glass, actually what you might need to include here is not that it's 1.8, but it's 1 over that. So actually what this equation is more likely looking for is glass to air. And that's going to be 1 over 1.8, which is going to be a value that is smaller than 1, and then carry on. That's one possibility why this goes wrong. But the important thing is that you recognize there's something mistaken here. Your calculator will actually bring up error when you type that in. It will not give you a value, but you can then have a look at where is that coming from. That shows you that there seems to be a mistake on that side.